This is Jim Collison. We are at Infotec 2014, back for another year, and we're interviewing the keynotes and the session speakers. I have Phil Poje with me, and Phil, I interviewed you last year. Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be here.
Good to see you. You know, last year when we did this, I didn't have the light.
You didn't have the light. I feel like I'm, getting
it's like Hollywood.
It is feel like Hollywood.
This is like Hollywood. Thanks for.
I wonder if I'll get a few calls.
You might get. Well, last year the lighting was so bad. That I couldn't really use any of those videos when we were done.
Oh, really?
They worked for live, but I went back and I tried to edit them. Of course, you can't make crap better in that situation. It just doesn't work. And so I didn't take advantage of. I could have made them audio only, and then I ran out of time. And
got it.
But this year brought in new lighting, so we're actually I learned a little lesson. That's a $25 light, so it's well
looks great.
Well worth the investment. You're back at Infotec again. Tell me a little bit, for folks who are just watching for the first time, what you do, where you're from, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Kansas City, Midwestern boy. Our company TechOrchard started 3 years ago. We work in the mobile IT space. So we go in and help organizations think through a number of issues around mobile. The first thing we really focus on is try to get companies to think of a mobile IT strategy. And the areas we address is number one, security.
Sure.
So that's kind of the big one, and
kind of a big deal right now.
Kind of a big deal right now.
People talking about that.
So we deal with mobile security, and we have a number of solutions. We use mobile device management is the big tool that we use in helping secure the devices, encrypt the data, going back and forth, enforcing policies in and around both corporate and BYOD devices. The other thing we really focus on is productivity of the worker, because as you and I were talking, understanding how to use technology is a real key. And mobile technology is relatively new, at least the power that we have with it today. So teaching people how to use a smartphone, how to use a tablet for a productive way, and the apps that go along with it, can really boost productivity for workers and for organizations.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do is we focus on some cost reductions. We have some solutions that we help reduce cost on data lines. And then the final thing we say is, how can we use technology in a meaningful way that helps organizations brand who they are? Because if I was to do a presentation off of a flip chart, easel
paper.
Some of the people wouldn't remember that. But anyway,
flannel graph,
Exactly. I'm going to use that in my presentation.
There you go. Good.
So if I did a flannel graph presentation, it would certainly tell something about who I am in my organization. By the same token, if you're using a very high professional, maybe keynote presentation, and using a mobile device to run that presentation with rich media embedded in it, you also say something. And the same is true for all of us. So as we interact with our customers, as we talk to them, communicate with them, how we transfer that data information, how we show and tell what we do, says a lot about it. And it forms the basis of how people look at us. And it also changes the experience you and I have with one another because of what we use. So that's what we're about.
Okay, very cool. And now I have an idea. I think the next presentation I do is going to be virtual flannel graph.
There you go.
and so it just puts it up on the screen.
I want to see
it's been a long time. I think maybe since the 80s since I did flannel graph. So very cool. Hey, we talked about mobile security in a conversation I was having before with John Nye. John is an ethical hacker. We were talking about mobile security in the context of, a mobile device. I have my phone right here. A mobile device connects and disconnects to many networks now, right? I mean, I think about it. The other day I was picking up something at Starbucks, and I popped open my phone to use a Starbucks app, and I was trying to connect, right? And sometimes it automatically happens. How screwed am I in most cases in connecting and, to secure and insecure wireless networks via mobile, and how worried are you guys about that?
Yeah, well, we're concerned about it. Certainly, the bad guys are getting more intelligent, right? And the bad guys are looking for low-hanging fruit to do that. Unsecure Wi-Fi, obviously, we don't recommend that you go into Starbucks and use the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I go in there and I'm I'm conditioned.
You are conditioned.
Hey, I can use this and it'll save my data.
Yeah, here's the other problem we have for those of us that are from the Midwest. We are trusting people by lot.
Right.
Okay, we trust one another. Part of our probably agrarian background, we rely on people. We trust people initially, unless they prove us to not to be trustworthy,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
If you go to the East or West Coast, that's not necessarily the mantra.
Sure.
So consequently, one of the challenges we see in the Midwest is organizations of all kinds are trustworthy. And therefore, they don't secure their mobile devices and some of their other networks as much as they should. And as individuals, we are trustworthy that the Starbucks Wi-Fi is going to be just fine.
Can I offer that to you now?
Yes, I'm ready now. So we're concerned about that because people say, well, I don't think I've ever lost any. I've never lost my phone, or there's never been any data taken from me. No, not that you know of. And most data breaches are not discovered by the organization that had the data breach. They're discovered outside of it. So once again, we have to do more and pay more attention to what's going on in and around mobility. I'm going to tell you too, Jim, the number one thing that your listeners can do right now just to help secure themselves that keeps 90% of the bad guys out, put a passcode on your phone, and please don't make it 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
And don't make it password, right? Passcode.
Right.
Come up with a unique code and change it once every 3 months, but put a passcode because there's still 50% of the people walking around with a smart device do not have a passcode on their devices.
You just go swipe and you're in.
They do, and there'll be close to 30,000 devices that are lost or stolen today in America. So. And the bad guys, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
It used to be, when I grew up, bad guys would break into jewelry stores and gas stations.
Right.
You know what they do now? They stand on bus stations or at airports, and they walk up and down stealing phones and devices because they can make quick money. And they sell the data. They sell the data and sell the device.
Yeah. Yeah. No, right on. They can get right in. In fact, I know. I know some folks the other day. I picked up a phone and swiped and. You're right in. We use Active data. It just escaped me. The Microsoft.
Yeah, Active Directory.
Active Directory. Well, the data. Where it forces you. Right. If I'm going to access Exchange, it's going to force me a password. So
absolutely.
So from what you guys are doing, obviously you have some additional solutions around that for individuals.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about those a little bit.
Well, the additional solutions, Microsoft ActiveSync and Active Directory gives you some control. I mean, you can always wipe a phone. However, what you cannot do in Active Directory is create multiple policies with different accesses and different control features. And so with the mobile device management and the enterprise mobility management solutions we have, you can get very granular, not only about policies, procedures, devices, controlling and pushing apps. It works really well because we live in a bring your own device world, right?
Yeah,
it's huge. This allows an individual to bring their device into your organization, Gallup, and for you to put a corporate profile on their device that is separate and distinct from their personal profile, their Gmail account or Yahoo account or whatever.
Right.
And it allows you to see into your profile, which would have your apps, your corporate Wi-Fi credentials, it would have your corporate email, some maybe documents and things that Gallup would provide to me as a employee, but it keeps it separate. You can see your stuff, but you can't see my stuff.
Yeah.
And then if I decide to go work for somebody else, you simply push a button and it just pulls off the apps and the data profiles that you set on my phone. Right. So it's a great way to control and manage data on people that are coming into your environment.
Sure. And so, Phil, let me ask you this question. Where do you see, when we talk about mobile devices, bring your own device in, right, which is what we keep talking about. Is that the trend? Are you seeing that? Is that the trend going forward, that in most cases the enterprise is going to have to support that indefinitely? Or do you see more that they're going to try, that's going to get reined in eventually?
We're seeing everything, really. To be honest, we see organizations who have a corporate policy, and because of the industry that they're in, they really feel like they need to own those devices, they need to pay for the devices. A lot of municipalities who are, frankly, have policemen, firemen, people like that, they're going to provide those devices, control them, manage them, they have sensitive information, so they're going to want to do that. However, we see a huge trend of bring your own. And what we see more often than not is there's usually some type of a blend. Usually there's some corporate devices that maybe they're shared devices that people take out in the field and share, but we are seeing a lot of BYOD, and what's happening, Jim, more than anything, is people are bringing in their own devices. They're using their Microsoft ActiveSync credentials to get in.
Right.
They're downloading emails directly to their phone, and guess what? IT doesn't even know it.
Right.
I've yet to walk into an organization where IT could tell me how many devices has email and corporate resources on them. They just can't.
Sure.
And so that's why having a mobile device management solution in your organization that is a gateway to keep people out that shouldn't be out and manages those people who have access or manages the data is absolutely critical for companies. Here's the analogy I use, and you and I have been around the IT business a few years. We have spent years and years, millions and millions of dollars of securing firewalls, all types of connections to our servers. I mean, we literally built Fort Knox around a lot of our data infrastructure. We do all that, and we literally leave the back door wide open when it comes to mobile. And I see it every day. I would predict that there are some very large organizations here in Omaha that still are not managing mobile devices through a very secure MDM solution, and they're going to get bit. It's some of the bad guys are seeing that this is low-hanging fruit, so they're going after these people through the more mobile portal, and it's the fastest growing area we see.
Oh, it's huge, right?
And then the reality is 81% of us today, latest statistics, are using these devices to get emails and other corporate resources.
Well,
big deal.
No, it is a big deal. I mean, cell phones have passed PCs from an adoption standpoint.
They sure have.
As far as just Android alone has
Sure.
passed PCs that's out there. And so, and we all want access to everything. I think eventually we're going to get it, right? I mean, it's just going to take some time for the infrastructure to catch up to it. And eventually we'll figure out how to do mobile and how to do mobile correctly and to get all those things done. You guys will probably be a part of that solution, right?
Well, we hope so. We want to be, right?
Pushing people forward, super important. In your session that you're doing, what are you hoping that people will take away?
Yeah, the real thing I want to do in the session is not tell people what to do, but to get people to start thinking. For those of us that have been in business 20, 30 years or more, we look at life, we look at business through a certain set of glasses, if you will. The millennials that are coming through see the world differently because they grew up with these things called mobile. What I'm wanting to do is get people to think about how can mobility help you do what you're doing better, and to include mobility as part of your overall business strategy, to start thinking of this new tool that you now have that can communicate, share data, that can tell stories, that can sell your services, that can solve problems for you anytime, any place. And this is the first time in the history of the world that we've had this type of capability. So how does a business with their own unique culture, with their own security issues, with the vertical that they tend to be in, how can they leverage mobility to not only improve how they deliver their services, but ultimately to be more competitive, not only locally but globally, with in doing what they do. So I'm hoping to get people to think outside the box and say, we're walking around with these tools that are doing more and more, and and I know mobility is relatively new. I mean, the iPhone, 7 years ago, tablets 4 years ago. This is a new area. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg, so there's a lot of different directions mobility can go, and we've seen that by some of the examples here at Infotec.
Just think when the PCs were 4 years old.
Oh my gosh!
Right, we barely had 286 processors.
We had 286. I had one. That and a track drive printer, man.
I know. I had a dot matrix printer one time that I was running. This would have been 94. And I worked as a youth pastor for the summer, and I was running letters out. Sure. And that thing would get hot; it would shut off for a second.
You had to wait.
Cool down, and then it keep going. The head would get so hot. What do you think of those things? So certainly, you guys are kind of ahead of the trends. When we talk about mobile, what do you think is out there today, or what is it capable of that we're not necessarily taking advantage of? What do you think's out there? What do you see?
There's a lot. I think, first of all, just the leveraging mobility from the communication standpoint, getting data information in people's hands that they need when they need it to make a decision, informed, up-to-date decision to solve problems, to close deals, to make people happy, to give them what they need. I think that's the biggest thing. The thing I'm probably most excited about to thinking ahead is not only where mobile and the technology goes, but some of the new machine-to-machine and iBeacon type of technology. So technology is now out there where we can start monitoring assets about where they're at, what the time is, what the temperature of that asset is, what the fluid level is,
Sure.
how long that engine has been running, so hours on an engine. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And when you can start gathering data like that and start gathering data where people are located and now you're servicing, so if you've got a heating and cooling company, how do you start servicing customers now, right? You no longer have to get a paper thing. You can now remotely you can see where your people are at, and if somebody has a need or an issue, whether you're heating or cooling or you're running an oil rig, location is key.
Yeah.
And now with some of this new technologies, as you enter the building, you're now given the information. Think of a doctor walking into a hospital with his own iPad. He has nothing when he walks in. The minute he walks through the door, he now has access to all of his files, all of his x-rays. But when he leaves at night, it all gets wiped off to secure the device, to secure the data. So there is so many things going on, and obviously we're seeing Google Glass here, we're seeing the wearables.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother area of how technology can really start helping us hopefully live life better.
Well, and I think of when you first started that sentence, or that what you just said, I thought of Google Now.
Yeah.
Right, which is that ability. It's got some sense of where I'm at, and so in the mornings when I get out in the car, the very first card to show up might be, hey, it's 21 minutes to work, and by the way, you might want to go a different route.
That's
because
exactly right.
There's a traffic jam there. I wish it would be more audible with me, to be honest, because I need someone screaming at me, don't go the regular way, type deal.
It might be, and you know what? That just go to settings and go and choose on settings and choose loud talking.
Yeah. No, I think there is an audio setting that I can
I'm sure
turn
that if there isn't, there will be.
Scream at me.
Scream
that
at
would
me,
be the scream at me.
Right. So they know when it's your phone and it's early in the morning, and whether you've had a cup of coffee or not, to scream at you and tell you don't go the normal way.
Yeah. How do folks find you, Phil? I mean, how do you get customers?
You know what? The old-fashioned way is probably the way we get most of our customers, and that is somebody telling somebody about it, referring people to us. Obviously, we've come to Infotec a number of years. We do a fair amount of advertising and different events, but frankly, people find us because Jim told somebody to, you know what, you ought to talk to Phil Poje over at TechOrchard. Him and his team can help you solve some of your issues around mobility, or they at least be a great sounding board for you. So, but people can look us up on TechOrchard.com, and that's T-E-C-H, T-E-C-H, and then orchard as in an apple orchard.com. We're on there, and they can contact us. We work here. We actually work nationwide, but our sweet spot is the Midwest, so Omaha is our backyard, and I'm going over to Des Moines just after the event tomorrow. To visit some clients over there, so
Yeah, one of the things I love about Infotec is just the local nature of it. One of the things I do on my tech podcast, of course, I have hosts and guests who come from all over the world. We have folks in Australia, and folks in Canada, here in the United States, over in the UK. And it gets this global feel, but when you come to Infotec, it's Midwest.
Yeah,
in a lot of cases.
Yeah, no,
but yet it's global, right? I mean, it's still a global reach, and it's good to see. I love to interview the guys that are doing stuff right here in Omaha around the area. So
well, you guys do a great job here at Infotec.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for taking the time to be a part of it. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
We'll be back with some more Infotec 2014 coverage. We got one more interview until lunch, and so stay around for just a few more minutes.